I am going to do a quick recap. And the reason for that, because you need some foundation. I know that we have to hear things many times over so that we can remember them, but I also know that many of you weren't on last night or maybe didn't get the newsletter today. So here's the recap. This is part 2 of Living Without Walls, why just loving God isn't enough. And so that might sound blasphemous to you, but hang out with me just a second, because I want to explain that what I mean by that, let me plug my computer in, is that we can love God deeply. You heard it through the prayer. We can love God deeply. We can worship faithfully. We can pray sincerely, and we can still live exhausted, exposed, reactive, and overwhelmed, truly. And so it's kind of confusing because we hear so much about how Jesus is our Prince of Peace. We hear so much how God is our deliverer, and yet we still feel bound. We hear again that he's our Prince of Peace, but we still feel like we're in chaos. We hear the word about God being our mighty God, and yet we still feel so incredibly weak at times. So where does that come from? If we're living exhausted, exposed, reactive, and overwhelmed, and we still have God, that doesn't mean that something's wrong with our faith. It means that something is missing from our formation. You guys know that if you sign up for my newsletter, I will send you a Bible study that's a foundational Bible study, because I believe in foundations. I believe in the formation of our faith. I believe that if you don't have your foundation solid, nothing's going to be able to stand on it. And for many of us, we're walking through life and we're expecting to grow something tall, and we're not taking the time to get our roots dug down deep so that it could support whatever we grow, right? So here's our backstory. Last night I told you that we're going to fix that missing formation thing. We are going to fix that because my heart is for you. And I know that for many of you, just like me, when I first got started in my faith and my faith walk with the Lord, 30 years ago, I truly thought something was wrong with the way I was praying. I thought something was wrong with my faith. There were times that I didn't even think that I was saved. And I was like, what is wrong with me that I love the Lord? I go to church. I read his word. I talk to him. I talk about him and to him. And yet, why am I not walking in freedom? Why am I still bound by things? Why do I still want to go back to my past? That's just me being honest. Why is it that I love Jesus with all of my heart, and I even love my husband because I was married to him? I went into ministry and marriage and to my faith all at the same time. Why is it that I love him and that I love my life and that I love my ministry and what I do for the Lord, and yet I'm still being tugged back into my past? What's wrong with me? Am I not saved? Am I doing something wrong? And so that feeling alone, that condemnation, that sometimes it felt like conviction, and most of the time it felt like condemnation. It felt like I was mad at myself and I was doing something wrong. And that didn't help the growth of my faith. So let's look at the backstory of Nehemiah. Nehemiah is a Jewish man, and he is living during the time when God's people had experienced massive loss, right? Long before Nehemiah, the Babylonians conquered Jerusalem. They destroyed the city walls. They burned the gates with fire. Now, you know what the city gates are, right? There's one way into the city gates. Those were burned intentionally with fire. And all of God's people were taken into exile into Babylon. Years later, fast forward, the Persian Empire took over Babylon. And then under the Persian rule, some Jewish people were allowed to start returning to Jerusalem in waves, about 50,000 of them. They came home, and because spiritual life for them was so incredibly important that when they came home, they immediately began rebuilding the temple so that they would have a place to worship. And that's important to understand. But the walls of this city were still in ruins. So they come back, they're gone in exile. They finally get their opportunity to come back, and they did. They put down their roots. They made it a point. They took a couple of decades to build back up the temple so that they have a place to worship. But mind you, the city walls, the walls that encompass the entire city, that kept people out, that made them safe and secure on the inside, those walls of the city were still in ruins. They were still broken down. They had a temple to worship in, but no walls to keep them safe. They had a place to worship, but they were not in peace and they were not in safety on a daily basis. Does that sound familiar? Many of us are in that same position. We are seeking after God. We are chasing him with all of our heart. We want to grow spiritually, and we can't figure out why we don't feel peace and we don't feel safety, and we're getting dragged back into our past, and there's still chaos and there's still torment in our lives and our hearts and our heads. We don't understand where it's coming from, and tonight we're going to address that. Nehemiah himself was not living in Jerusalem. He was serving as a cupbearer to the Persian king. I want you to understand that cupbearers were very important men. They were, it wasn't a small role at all. They were very trusted. They were close to the king. They were part of his inner circle. They were the second closest to the king other than his wife himself, the queen, right? So one day, here he is, Nehemiah's brother, and some of the men came from Jerusalem. Now, mind you, again, Nehemiah is Jewish, but he's not living in Jerusalem, okay? He's Jewish. He's not living in Jerusalem. He's actually employed by the government. He is the cupbearer for the Persian king. He's always lived in exile. He's never lived in freedom. He was born in captivity. He was raised in captivity, and he was serving the Persian king. However, Nehemiah's brother and some men came from Jerusalem, and they're talking. And as they're talking, Nehemiah asks, how are our people? How are our people in Jerusalem? They're back from exile. I heard they're rebuilding the temple. How are they doing? And Nehemiah's brother basically brought him a report about Jerusalem. And he said that they had returned from exile. They had rebuilt the temple, but the walls were still broken down and the people were still incredibly vulnerable. Nehemiah 1:3 says this, the survivors who are left from captivity in the province are there in great distress and reproach. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down and its gates have been burned with fire. Mind you, in this verse right here, this is Nehemiah's brother giving Nehemiah the report. Notice that he said the survivors who are left from captivity are now in the province and they're in great distress and reproach. They were survivors. They survived the exile. They survived a difficult period of their life. They are now free from exile. They are now free from bondage, but they're not living free at home yet. They had survived. They had returned. They were back in the land. They were worshiping again. They were spiritually active, but they were still living without peace. They were still living without peace. And for many of you, I want you to really perk up when I say that, because I even, upon writing this message, was like, Lord, that's where I'm at in a lot of ways after I lost my husband. I was desperately putting to get back my spiritual life. I knew I was going back into ministry. I was healing my heart. I was pursuing God. And what I knew, though, is that there were still areas of my life where there was not peace. There were still areas of my life where I was not experiencing joy. And yes, it was because of loss, but there was something deeper. So this message is for me just as well as it's for you. Distress here, in the simple terms that of the verse that I just read to you, basically meant that the people were under constant pressure, ongoing stress, never feeling settled, always bracing for something to go wrong. If you're that type of person that you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, or you're always waiting that even though there's good things going on, you're still waiting for something to go bad, this is for you, because that's where they were living. They had God, they had a spiritual life, but they were still under constant pressure, stress, feeling unsettled, and bracing themselves for something to go wrong at any given moment. Distress isn't just one bad day. It's living with your shoulders always tight. And that's where these people were. For us, that would look like loving God, but always being anxious. Worshiping, but being exhausted and worn out and wanting to quit. For us, it would look like believing, but being overwhelmed. What does reproach mean in this? Because remember, it said that they had survived, but they were still in distress and they were still living in reproach. What does reproach mean? It means they were living in shame, in disgrace, and in humiliation. Does that sound like some of us? You come on the live, you've given your heart to Jesus, you're pursuing Christ, you come on the live, you hear so much about how God delivers us and sets us free, and that he delivers us from our shame, and he gives us his grace, and we can We can boldly come before the throne of grace. And yet it says that they were walking like some of us are still walking in shame, without grace, or in disgrace and in humiliation, instead of security, confidence in the Lord. They were living in reproach, not because they were sinful, but because they were exposed. There were no walls in the city. Reproach is what happens when your life is open to things that it shouldn't be open to. Do I need to say that again to somebody? Reproach is what happens when your life is open to things that it should not be open to. Shame grows where protection is missing. We're going to get into that, because if some of you are walking in shame, if some of you are walking tonight in a place where you love Jesus, but you are still struggling with your identity, you got to grab a hold of this word tonight. Nehemiah 1:4 says this. So it was when I heard these words, and this is Nehemiah saying it, that I sat down and I wept and I mourned for days. I was fasting and praying before God, the God of heaven. Now, mind you, when he heard this, he was completely distraught. He was not responsible for the breaking down of those walls. He was not responsible for what happened, but he felt incredibly responsible to help fix it, which is a good thing. And it's a God thing, for sure. When he says that he had mourned for days, can I just tell you that when he prayed and he fasted and he cried out to God and he was mourning for that situation, he wasn't even affected by the situation. He was in Persia. This was Jerusalem. But those were his people. They were in bondage. He knew what it was to be in bondage. He had spent his life in captivity. He longed maybe for freedom. And maybe that's why he had a heart for them. But God placed it on his heart. And you know what he did? He began praying and weeping and mourning and crying out to God. And it wasn't just for days or many days. We find out that it was 4 months before God gave an answer. And I just want to encourage somebody right now, because you've been praying for something, you've been asking God for something, you threw up, you lobbed it in, you lobbed in the prayer a couple of times. You didn't get an answer, you didn't see God's hand, and you gave up. You thought, God's not answering, God's not listening, either I'm not praying right or it's not his will. Oh well, I'll just give it up. And I want to tell you that sometimes God's working behind the scenes. God's preparing you for what you're praying for, or preparing the situation that you're about to walk into so that it's ready for what you're going to do or where you're going to be. Don't give up. For some of you, you know that you should be praying for and fasting for and crying out to God, and you're giving up. You're getting tired. God's not answered yet. For him, he cried out and he prayed and he fasted for 4 months, asking God to hear him. Nehemiah was broken to know that his people were home but still not at peace. The people of Jerusalem had taken decades to rebuild the temple so that they could worship, because spiritual life was important. That's noble, that's awesome, that's good. But because they had no walls, they couldn't truly rebuild their lives. And when I wrote those, and I said this to you last night, when I wrote those and I typed out those words on this page 3 nights ago, it hit me like a ton of bricks for myself. Because I know what it is to go through tragedy and trauma, losing my husband to COVID, coming back in, losing ministry, my children empty nested at the same time. My life went from full to empty very quickly. And there I was. And when I leaned back in, I was leaning into God. I was leaning into my relationship with him. I was leaning into healing. I was leaning into his word. I knew that spiritual life was the utmost importance. But I wasn't rebuilding my life. And even still to this day, 4 years later, most of the walls in my house look like that. Completely and totally 100% white. Nothing. This wall behind me is a mural. That's it. It is wallpaper. It's not a real wall. And so no, that is not mold, and it is not going to make me sick. I get those emails all the time. But guys, I want you to understand that most of my home is not even moved into. I haven't emotionally moved into this house except for like maybe the last 4 months. And so I know what it is to concentrate on God, but still not be rebuilding your life and wondering when that's going to happen and wondering why it's not happening. Nehemiah didn't cause the destruction, but he felt responsible for the repair. Let's look at why walls mattered, because we're going to talk a lot about walls tonight. Why did walls matter? We don't live in walled cities. We don't understand what they mean, but I want you to understand that in a city, in ancient times, walls were the first line of defense. Walls were kept, and they preserved normal life that was safe from danger. They allowed people to rebuild their identity and their faith. It kept raiders out and thieves out and enemy forces out. Yes, of course, they had already experienced being taken over by the Babylonians, so we know that walls can be penetrated. But for the most part, it's like a lock on your door. It is the fact that you have something set up to keep out enemy forces, dangers, thieves, raiders. Walls allowed people and families to sleep securely at night. I want you to just picture this, and I said this last night. Imagine having a beautiful home but no doors on it. What if you dumped all your money in it to make it beautiful? You hired interior decorators. Every room was decked out with the best that it could be. And then you had no walls, or no doors, no locks, no doors, and no windows. How would you sleep at night? You put all of it into the house, but you have no doors, no locks, and no windows. Walls created predictability. They created a safe space where communities could thrive, not just survive, but thrive. The walls inside, the people inside those walls could live with a sense of security and peace, and then that brought them freedom. Because you know and I know that when you feel secure, when you feel peace, you will feel freedom. If you've ever had a relationship where you felt secure in it, you felt peace in it, you felt freedom in it, they all go hand in hand. But security is first. If you don't feel safe, your body won't relax, your mind won't stop going. You'll know it, you'll feel it. Many of you are in relationships like that. You don't feel secure, you don't have peace, and you don't feel like you have freedom, you feel trapped. Walls provided protection so that they could bring and build homes and establish markets and worship without a constant fear of invasion. It didn't make them invincible, but it did make them stable. Walls to us sound like just a bunch of bricks, but to them it represented identity, it represented dignity, it represented a place to belong. Those walls said, this is home. Without walls, people survived, but they never thrived. And so it was necessary to rebuild because time didn't heal the damage. Just like time doesn't heal all wounds in our life, time didn't heal the damage. There had been decades that had passed and they had a temple, but they've never rebuilt the walls. You need both. You need a spiritual life and you need the practical walls that can keep you safe enough so that when you worship, you can be free and have peace and experience growth without fear that somebody's coming in to take it away from you. Years passed, life went on, people adapted, but they never rebuilt. Does that sound familiar? Because after a loss or trauma, we tend to adapt and get through, but we often struggle to rebuild. And that's exactly where I was. And I confessed that to you last night. I bore my heart to you last night. If you want to watch part 1, it's over there on YouTube. But what they had gotten used to was this fear. It had become normal to them. Broken had become their identity. Now it wasn't just something that happened. Now it was something that their identity rested in. They were broken, and this is how it was going to be. They weren't falling apart anymore, but they also weren't rebuilding, and that's what hit me hard. They restored their spiritual center. They resumed worship, but they couldn't rebuild their lives. And so listen, I just want to share with you this, that when I got saved, I got saved at a Billy Graham crusade in Japan. And then I came back from the States and I just slid right back into my old ways. I didn't create any boundaries. I kept the same friends. I kept doing the same things. I really didn't read my word. I really didn't understand how to plug in. And I didn't actually find out either. I didn't explore it. I didn't investigate. I didn't ask questions. I didn't seek for answers. I just went right back into my old ways. And it wasn't until over a year later that I ended up in a borrowed bed in Tampa. I was homeless. I was living on people's couches and in people's homes, with friends and their parents, or friends' house, or just hopping couch to couch. And I came to the end of myself yet again. And I looked up from that borrowed bed in Tampa, and I literally said the words. I said, God, if you're there and you see me, I don't know if you remember me, but I met you back there in Japan. I met Jesus in Japan, and if you remember me, you know that I was a mess then, and I'm a mess all over again. And I need an angel. I need an angel. I didn't even know how to pray, guys. I prayed for an angel. I didn't even know how to pray. I was raised Catholic all my life, so yeah, that sounded good. I said, God, I need an angel to change my business. Guys, be really careful how you pray. I was in a marketing business, and I prayed that God would send me an angel to change my business. And oh boy, did it change my business. 2 weeks later, I met a guy named Anthony. He was in the ministry. I went from strangers to married to him. I was completely out of my business and now living with him, married to him, and working in ministry. Boy, did that change my business. Be very careful how you pray. I'm so thankful, but be careful how you pray. But even after coming to know the Lord, like personally, right? I knew him. I gave my heart to him in Japan. I came home, went back into my old ways. Many of you know what that is, right? You've said yes to Jesus. You went back into your old ways. You've come onto this live, and maybe you found your way back to Jesus because you were living out in the world and you were doing your thing and you weren't serving God, and you just basically let your relationship grow colder. You never bothered to grow it in the first place. That's what happened to me. And so here I am, married to a preacher, traveling in full-time ministry, but there were old doors that were still open. There were people that I was still connected to in my past. And there were desires that I never destroyed. They were still very much alive in my life. Here I'm a preacher, because at that point I had been ministering the gospel, but I was still wrestling behind the scenes. I was still wrestling. I was trying desperately to keep my heart right with God. I was trying desperately to keep my eyes upon him. And then every now and then in my weakness, I would go looking at my past and thinking, I wonder how so-and-so is doing. I wonder how that person's doing. Maybe I'll reach back. And I had no business going back. I was now married. I was now in ministry. I had no business going back, but my thoughts were going back there. I kept those doors open. And I hadn't built any boundaries, and I hadn't built any walls in my own life that could support the spiritual growth that I was encountering. I remember one year and I saw it today. I remember one year, probably in my first 5 years of ministry, because I began noticing that I was growing with the Lord, but there were things that I was doing that was taking away the peace that I was finding. I would find peace, I would find victory, and then I noticed that there were certain things that I was allowing in my life that was seeping back and stealing back the joy and the peace that I had just gotten. And it was like, it was adding it and then taking it away. It was adding it and taking it away. And I could never get, I never seemed to get momentum moving forward, because even though I was growing spiritually, I still had these doors open. It's kind of like having a boat. It's kind of like having a boat and you're doing fine, except water keeps getting inside the boat and you don't know why you're sinking. And you just keep taking the water out and taking the water out, and you just keep pulling back down again. And what you don't realize is that you got a hole in your boat. And if you don't patch up the hole, the water is going to keep getting in. And you can diligently be with your buckets trying to get the water out of the boat. And that'll work for a time and a season, but you're going to get exhausted and you're going to get frustrated and you're going to feel like you don't know what you're doing, because you don't, because you have a hole in your boat. And if you don't stop and clog up the holes so that the water doesn't keep coming in, you're not going to stay afloat. And the same thing was happening in me. I was going and growing spiritually, but then allowing ways and things and people to seep out the joy and the victory out of my life. I didn't realize it was up to me. God wasn't coming down to do it for me. No one else was going to make the decision. I had to clog up the hole. I had to keep the people out. I had to close the doors. I had to lock the windows. It was all up to me. I remember when I was there in Japan, in Alaska, because I traveled and ministered a lot. We were evangelists on the road for about 17 and a half years. And one of the places that I personally went to the most was Alaska. They tell me that I've seen more of Alaska than Alaskans, because every time that they would fly me in, they would fly me into a different part of Alaska. We would fly in, to the main airport, and then they would take me to different parts. And it was incredible. I'd been 5 different times. And in each time they took me to a different island. It was amazing. I remember out of 5 trips, 4 of them I was on my own. My family wasn't with me. My husband wasn't with me. I went over there by myself. They couldn't afford to fly our family. They couldn't even afford to fly me. They had reached out to me and asked me, would I come to minister to their women? Would I come to minister to their communities, to their reservations? Because these women, I don't know if you know this, but at the time, and I think it still is, but at the time, Alaska was the #1 state for incest. And there was a lot of brokenness. There was a lot of heartbreak. There was a lot of lack of trust. And there was such a need for women's ministry. And so they had reached out to me and said, hey, would you come? And I said, I would love to. And they said, okay, there's only one catch. We can't afford to bring you out here. Will you come? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, do you need to pray about it? No, I don't need to pray about it. If this is God's will, then it'll be God's will. If I'm supposed to be out there, then God will provide. The plane ticket alone was just under $1,000, and God provided for it. And I went out there, and I was there for like 2 weeks at a time every time I went. And I absolutely loved it. And there was such a need. And my ministry has always been to minister to the brokenhearted and to the broken, and to climb into the pit with people so that they could get back out. That's always been my heart. And I loved it. I loved being over there. But I remember that there was this one place. Now, mind you, I would get on a plane and I would fly out there, and somebody would pick me up from the airport, from the church. And I would basically just go places and minister places wherever they took me. I would live wherever, in whatever hotel or whatever home, or stay with whoever. And so here I am in Anchorage, and I was doing a conference, and I was staying in this home, and it was, the room that they put me in was kind of like a I don't know, it's like a dungeon, literally. But it was my own room. And I had some serious prayer meetings with God down there. Man, I mean, he and I, we got close. And I don't know if it was just kind of this sadness and the brokenness of the ministry I was doing there, and how my heart was broken for what broke God's heart. I don't know if it was the fact that I was away from my family, my children, and my husband. I don't know if I was just missing home and just kind of broken completely, the trip and personally. But God and I had a lot of really amazing conversations in that dungeon. And I remember, and I ran back upstairs today, and I grabbed this because this was the Bible that I had with the time. And if you can see, it's pretty beat up, because I took it everywhere with me. It was one of the first Bibles that I used after my children's Bible that I preached out of. The first sermon I ever preached was out of a children's Bible. This is the NIV. And this is what I wrote. And I knew exactly where this was, because last night while I was writing it, I knew that I had written kind of a mini book inside my Bible. I'm sorry, it was Fairbanks. It says Fairbanks, Alaska, because if I'm writing a note, I always write where I was, what the date was, so I know what God was doing in my life then. And it said, one encounter with the unconditional love and acceptance of God can and will change everything. And then it went on to say, I have found a place of complete unconditional love and acceptance in God, and I want nothing to separate or keep me from that peace. That's why I live in a bubble. That's literally what I wrote. I said, that's why I live in a bubble. That's why I choose to not enter in to things that bring me back to sin. I am not living in denial. I am choosing to deny all things that would drive me out of that place with God, that would drive a wedge between me and Him. Unconditional love and acceptance is what we all crave. And in fact, it was spoken over, let's see, unconditional love is mentioned 33 times in the Word, all about God's love. And went on to say, unconditional love and acceptance is what we all crave. That can only be found in God. And then I put this, I choose to stay in a bubble in this place with God, not allowing anything to get between us, because sin separates us from God, and I don't want to be separated from him. It's the only place that I have ever found unconditional love and acceptance. I put then, I choose to deny anything, and I underlined anything that will drive a wedge between me and him, me and my husband, because I have found a place to belong, and that's where I want to be. And I wrote that in here. And I remember when I was reading this message, when I was writing this message the other day, what I'm saying to you is this, that it's not enough to just love God. If we do not build walls of protection so that we could keep in the life that we're trying to live for Christ, that we could not, if we don't have those walls, the peace that we bring into ourselves is going to seep right back out. It's going to be stolen away. It is literally like having a house without windows and without doors. How safe would it be? You can fill your house up with the most beautiful things. You can fill your house up with peace. But if you leave your door open and you leave your windows open, you ain't going to have peace, and you ain't going to keep your nice things for very long. Are you with me? It's not enough to love God if we don't build the walls that keep us safe and securely holding on to the things that we keep building up in our lives. Jesus does give us peace. He's the Prince of Peace. But if I fill my heart at church and I fill my house with peace and then I leave the doors wide open, it shouldn't surprise me when anxiety comes. It shouldn't surprise me when chaos comes. It shouldn't surprise me when fear comes walking back through my front door. So the question is this. We like to say, why isn't God giving me peace? But I think that we should actually be asking ourselves, what have I allowed access to come in that steals away my peace? Because it's not that God is not the one who gives us peace and comfort and joy. It's that we then don't have walls put up and boundaries put up, and we allow access to things that come in and steal away that joy and steal away that peace. And that's not God's fault. That's on us. This word in Nehemiah is what is telling us that there's two things that are needed. Yes, your spiritual life, but if you don't have walls, then no matter how much you build up yourself spiritually, you run the risk of having all those things stolen back away from you. Then you run the risk of being frustrated, of getting upset with God, upset with yourself, being worn out, feeling like you're a hamster on a wheel trying to keep your victory up. And all the while, you want to give up. But it's not that God doesn't work. It's not that Jesus isn't real. It's that our doors are open. Our windows are open. We're letting thieves in. We're letting people access to us who should not be in our life if we want to keep peace. When I wrote that, I said, I will live in a bubble if I need to keep the peace, to keep my place with God, because I don't want to lose the love. I don't want to lose the acceptance. I don't want to lose this with God. I've never found it before. And now that I have it, nothing is going to drive a wedge in that. And if you don't have that, if I don't have that resolve, then we're screwed, guys, seriously. And I'm just probably don't have a lot of preachers using screwed in your messages, but we are. We're in trouble because if we think that we're going to keep victory when we are allowing things in our life that steal away our victory, good luck. And it's not God's fault. And this is not a rebuke to you. This is guys, we know this stuff. Let's get a hold of it. And let's remember that scripture says in Proverbs 25:28, whoever has no rule over his own spirit is like a city broken down without walls. Guys, God cares about our devotion, yes. Here's the good news. Some of you think that why you don't have victory and why you don't have peace is because you're not reading enough or doing enough and that you got to do more. Here's the good news. This isn't about you doing more. This is about you doing what you're doing intelligently and with wisdom. Because God wants us, yes, to have faith, but he also wants us to use wisdom. Lock your doors. Lock your windows. Keep whatever God puts on the inside of you, store it up. Keep it safe And don't let people and things and experiences suck it out of you. God cares about our devotion, but he also cares about our formation. He cares that we have a spiritual life, and he cares that we have a practically structured life with, listen, boundaries, fortified walls, and gates to keep the enemy out so that we can flourish and live in peace. Here's where this story turns. Nehemiah doesn't just feel burdened. He actually gets a divine opportunity from God to do something about it. He's given an opportunity to go to Jerusalem, to leave his job with as a cupbearer with the Persian king. And the Persian king says, yes, go. Do what you will. Do what you're going to do. That was a God thing. Do what you will. I'll let you off of work. You can go there, rebuild your people's walls, and then come back. So he's given the opportunity to go to Jerusalem and lead the people in building out their walls again. And guys, miraculously, it took 52 days to rebuild that wall. It took decades to rebuild the temple. It took 52 days to rebuild that wall. And here's why. Because not one person did everything, but every family rebuilt the wall in front of their own house. They were just responsible for the wall in front of their own house. And if everybody just built up the wall in front of their own house, then that wall would get built. And guys, that's what I want to encourage you. This message isn't a rebuke to say, try harder, do more, show up, be better, walk straighter. Somebody asked me last night on here about they're just trying to be the best, most perfect Christian that they could be, the best follower of Christ that they could be. Guys, that's exhausting. I don't know about you. I got enough places in this life that I've got to play perfect and be perfect and try to look like I got it together. In God, because of Jesus, we have grace. There is no perfect follower. Only Jesus was perfect. So if the mantra in our head is that I've got to pray more and show up more and try better and stop messing up and I've got to be perfect, then this message is to let you off the hook. That it's not about exhausting yourself or struggling to walk in victory and trying to find peace, but rather to recognize that we're not failing spiritually. It's not that we're missing in more devotion in most cases. It's that keep doing your devotion, yes. Keep pursuing God, yes. But don't forget to protect what you're building. He's our Prince of Peace. And where there is chaos, we shouldn't look to God going, why are you not working? We should be looking at our life going, where am I allowing the peace to seep out of my life? Pursue him, worship, pray, yes. But learn to build the walls that keep the enemy out. Close the gates so you can protect what God is growing in you. This is not about blaming you for your anxiety or your exhaustion or your overwhelm. Although I hope you can see and ask yourself the question, do I really struggle with anxiety, or do I just have things in my life that cause me anxious thoughts? Do I really battle with depression, or am I just choosing not to heal over things in my life that make me depressed? Things that have happened in the past that I'm holding on to, that God is inviting me in to heal from. And yet at the same time, I would rather choose, you would rather choose to just call ourselves depressive rather than going, wait a second, maybe there's some things I can do to heal from the things that depress me, that cause me anxiety, that cause me overwhelm. Maybe, just maybe, I can grow spiritually, and I can also examine my life and figure out where in my life am I allowing access to things that are stealing from me while I'm still trying to build myself up. This is not about pretending that Jesus isn't enough either. It's about asking whether or not peace is missing, or just are we unprotected? Are we unprotected? Last night I asked you some questions to identify some walls that may be down in your life. And so here's what we're going to do real quickly. I'm going to throw out to you some areas, some walls, some boundaries that may be torn down in your life. They may be torn down. And if you notice that they're torn down, and here's the good thing, and guys, I'm saying this to you because I found, there's a reason I didn't go to bed all night. I was finding some cracks in my walls, or walls that have been completely torn down in front of my own house. And God was having me look at them. So spiritual and relational boundaries or walls, here's one. If your wall is down here in your spiritual and your relational life, this is what it's going to look like. You let people into your life who lead you away from what you value. You feel guilty after certain relationships or interactions. You have the victory, and then you answer your phone, and you meet up with the guy, you meet up with the girl, you have the conversation, you send the pictures, you do whatever it is that in that moment, and then you feel guilty afterwards, and you feel shameful afterwards, and you're wondering when that's ever going to go away. It's not that God doesn't take your shame away. It's that we keep involving ourselves in interactioning and having interactions with, interactioning, that's a good word. That's our new word for the night. We keep having interactions with things that cause us shame. God takes it, then we replace it. God takes it, then we replace it. If you find yourself compromising your spiritual values, resulting in shame or distance from God because of certain connections, then this is for you. Then that wall is broken down, and I'm going to tell you how to repair it. How about your time and your rhythm? If your wall is down in your time and your rhythm in your daily life, it probably feels like this. Your days run together. There's no real start and stop. You're always catching up. Nights are the only time that you can really feel peace because nobody's tugging on you. Nobody's stretching you thin. How about your emotional and your relational walls? If this wall is down, then you have a lot of people having a lot of access to you, and you don't have access to yourself. You carry other people's emotions, but nobody carries yours. You feel drained more than you feel nourished or connected. How about in your body and in your health? If your wall is down in your body and in your health, if you have no walls, if you have no boundaries, if you have no structure in your life where it concerns your body and your health, then that means that your body is last on your list, that you push and you push and you push and then you crash, that you eat and you sleep and you move more reactively than anything. You're not a priority. You're an afterthought. And that's a problem. How about your work and your purpose life? That wall. If that wall is broken down, it means that your work bleeds into everything. You may be doing things, a lot of things, but finishing few. You may feel pushed instead of focused. And I just want you to take note, is that one of the walls that's broken down in your house, in your life? How about your financial wall? Oh, geez. There she goes. I love you. Don't be mad at me. This is for me too. If money feels vague or stressful, if you avoid looking at it, if you have money in the bank, but you're still not paying your bills because you don't want to get rid of the money that you do have to pay your bills, but then you have that gnawing feeling in your stomach that says you better pay your bills, but you don't want to, and it's that constant tug. If you're hoping instead of planning, if you avoid looking at it, this is for you. How about your home and your, are you guys mad at me yet? How about your home and your family? How about that wall? If your wall is down and it's broken down in your home and your family, then that means that your home is no longer restful and peaceful. It means that the roles in your home are completely unclear, and it feels like you're always needed, but you're never really actually appreciated nor supported. Again, I just want you to notice these things. We're not fixing them just yet. And here's the thing. Tonight, we're not actually going to fix all of these things. So don't panic. If you're like, I saw myself in all of them, all my walls are down. It's okay. Because here's the thing. God didn't ask the people of Jerusalem to rebuild the entire wall. He said, listen, take a piece, take a part. Take the wall that's right out in front of your home and start working on that one brick at a time. So don't feel overwhelmed. Don't feel like you have to fix it all tonight. Please don't panic. And noticing that those walls have been torn down in your life does not mean that you failed, because we don't actually tear down the walls in our life. Normally life tears down the walls and then we just keep on going because we have to. It's all we know. We just keep on going. In Jerusalem, the people weren't falling apart anymore. Remember, they were worshiping, they were living, they were surviving, and so were you. They just weren't rebuilding. And maybe there's some areas in your life where you've stopped rebuilding, where you've literally just gone into like autopilot. Nothing's falling apart anymore. You're afraid that something else is going to break, but you're just kind of keeping it all together. And you're also not rebuilding because, well, why would you? Because all you're doing is living in the ruins, and you're getting really used to it, and there you stay. Before we talk about rebuilding, we need to understand how good people end up living without walls in the first place. Why would we ever want to live in the ruins? Why would we ever want to live in a place where we don't feel secure? Why would we ever want to live in a place where we are pouring into ourselves spiritually, but in every other aspect we're not? Why would we ever do that? Here's why. Here's how our walls get broken down. And for some of you, this is going to hit you right between the eyes. It did me. Here's a couple different reasons why our walls get broken down. Are you guys with me? I wish I could see your faces. I wish I could see if you were still with me. I wish I could see your faces. This is not blame. This is understanding. Please remember, most people don't tear their own walls down. Life does. Life happens. And then we just keep going because it's all we know. Number one, if your walls are broken down, it might be because you grew up too fast and you had no choice. Some of you were kids who had to act like adults way too soon. You had to raise your siblings. You had to handle the money. You had to handle the emotions. You had to handle problems that were not yours. You didn't ask for it. They were given to you. You wanted to just be a kid. And nobody stopped life for you to see, wait a second, this isn't theirs to carry. This isn't fair. No one slowed things down. And you didn't get a chance to just be a kid. You learned how to handle life before you learned how to even take care of yourself. And no one was taking care of you. That's how your walls get broken down. That's how you don't ever build walls in the first place. See, for some of us, it's not that our walls got broken down. They were established at one point. For some of us, we never built walls. I lost my dad when I was 14. I was told at the age of 12 that he had cancer, and I don't remember ever having boundaries in my life. I don't remember ever having a really strong security of who I would let in my life, what kind of friends that I would have. I didn't have boundaries. I let anybody in. I took whatever friend I could get. And when I came to know boys, it was like, oh, you like me? I love you too. Oh, you like me? I love you too. And that's all it was. There was no standard. There was no anything. It was just, here I am. I'm looking for love. And for so many of you, you're in that same spot. You love Jesus, but you got no walls. And you'll take whatever love comes your way. And then you'll end up brokenhearted, crying out to God all over again. As an adult, you feel responsible for everything. You have a hard time resting. You feel guilty slowing down. Oh, dear Lord. You step in before anyone asks you to because you're always expected to. You feel uneasy when nobody needs you. It's like, wait, what's wrong? You don't know how to just be. All you know how to do is just handle, to go and do and be whatever they need you to be, but never what you want to be. You grew up too fast. Another way that you either never built walls or that your walls were knocked down for you is that you always had to be the strong one. People leaned on you because you didn't fall apart. You didn't complain. You showed up even when it hurt. No one checked on you if you were okay because they knew that you could handle it. And no one ever stepped in. Nobody ever stopped to relieve you or to support you and said to you that this is not your responsibility to handle. And now, as an adult, you feel uncomfortable asking for help. You feel like it's weakness, and weakness isn't allowed. You keep going even when you're exhausted. You don't know how to receive care. You feel unseen even when surrounded by people. You've heard me say it a million times that I can be standing in a room full of 1,000 people and feel completely alone. For many of you, you feel the same. You're tired, but you don't know how to stop. You just keep going and going and showing up. For others of you, you experience big loss or big change. And that loss didn't just make you sad, it changed your entire world. It changed your routine, it changed your safety. Your sense of normal completely disappeared. And you had to figure out how to do life again while you were hurting. Because after the loss, nothing felt steady anymore, but you had no choice. You had to keep going, you had to keep showing up, you had to keep paying your bills. As an adult now, you brace for the next loss. You're always looking for the next shoe to drop. You struggle to feel settled. You avoid attachment. Things that are clingy and too tight make you anxious, and you sabotage them. You push them away. You feel anxious when things aren't calm. You keep moving because stopping actually hurts, and you don't want to sit alone with yourself for very long. You're not dramatic. You're just protecting yourself from pain because that's how you get through. Come on, somebody hearing me? Anybody out there? Man, I wish I could see your faces. Or maybe there's crickets and you've all left me. I'm the only one here. Well, somebody's here. Somebody's hitting the hearts. It's probably Shanika and Mary. And what about others of you? You've lived in stress for a really long time, and that's why you have no walls. Some of you lived in homes where you were always on edge. There was always screaming. There was always yelling. There was always drama. You never knew what mood somebody would be in. I was raised in a home where my dad was that dad. That no matter what I did, it wasn't good enough. It wasn't, if I hit a home run, it was nice hit, but there was always this striving. There was always walking on eggshells. We were always on edge. There was always an elephant in the room that no one was talking about. Dad was always angry, and you just hoped that you weren't standing in front of him when he decided to blow his gasket. And he tried to be a good man. He wanted to be a good man, but he was raised as an orphan, and he was a broken little boy who never got healing, and all he did was break us. Not on purpose, but it's all he knew. Our home was always on edge. There was always eggshells to walk on. I never knew what mood he would walk in on. And as a result, I became that wife. I remember when my husband literally said to me, I never know what Jennifer I'm coming home to. And man, did that break my heart. Okay, it broke my heart. And at the time, though, when he said it, it made me angry. But I knew it was the truth. The same way that my dad did that to me, I was doing that to my husband. And he never knew who he was showing up to. He never knew who he was coming up home to after work. If you lived in stress for a long time, then you stay alert just to get through the day. You are hyper aware. You are hypersensitive and hyper aware. And now it's just hard to relax. You learn to stay ready. Never rest, but stay ready. And now as an adult, you struggle to sleep. You feel restless when things slow down. You stay busy to avoid feeling. You stay tense even during good moments. You can't fully relax your body. Your body learns stress before it learns safety. And this is just your mechanisms, your coping mechanisms. This is just what you do. For the others of you, you've been needed. Being needed became your job, and it's what you did. You were the helper. You were the fixer. You were the peacemaker. You were the one that being needed was how you stayed connected. It was how you got love. When people needed you, it meant that you mattered. Over time, being needed started feeling like your purpose, or you were worthy, or you were secure. You stayed meeting everybody else's needs, and nobody really met yours. You learned that people valued you most when you showed up for them. And now as an adult, you feel guilty saying no. You overextend yourself. You feel valuable only when you're useful. You attract people who take more than you can give and that you're willing to give, but you keep trying to give it. You feel empty even after giving so much. You don't rest. You just recover as much as you can and keep going. For others of you, you learned how to get through, but never to be cared for, and you never asked for it. You figured things out on your own. You didn't expect help. You didn't ask for help. You didn't slow down. You learned how to survive, but never to feel safe. You learned how to keep going, but never how to rest. As an adult, you do everything yourself. You struggle to trust people. You don't ask for what you need. And instead, just the thought of you having a need means you're needy and you're whiny and you don't want to be that. And so you don't say it. You feel alone even when you're supported, and independence became your protection, but it's extremely costly. And you know it. For others, no one taught you how to organize your life. Some of you were taught to pray, but no one ever taught you how to build a steady day. No one taught us when to stop, when to rest, when to say no, how to take care of yourself. Now, as an adult, you feel scattered and you struggle with routines and you feel behind all the time and you feel busy but never actually productive. and you don't know where your energy goes, but you know that it goes somewhere, and you feel like you're lazy, but you are not lazy. You are not lazy. You were just never shown structure. And for others of you, you've been praised for always being available. This was me. Pastors struggle with this big time. People thank you for being there. People need you there. They thank you for being there. They praise you for saying yes. They depend upon you. And you keep the door open, even when it hurts you. You feel pressure to respond quickly. You feel anxious when unavailable. You feel selfish when you set limits. Come on, somebody say amen. You keep doors open even though you're drained completely. You feel resentful but unsure why. We're always rewarded for your availability but never protected from burnout. Nobody ever looked at you and said, are you burnout? Let me take that off your plate. No, because I need to be needed so that I know that I matter. Just like the people of Jerusalem, we didn't choose this to be our life. We simply adapted. We did what we had to do. We're not failing at life, guys. We're just living the way that we know to live. And now we're living for Christ, and we're still living in this way. We live for the Lord. We love the Lord. We have Jesus in our heart, but we are still acting in the same modes of operation. Does that make sense? Now, I want you just to take a deep breath for just a moment, because if you're recognizing yourself in any of this, this is not the moment to fix everything. This is not the moment to go, wow, I am failing miserably. You're not. This is the moment to realize why life has felt incredibly hard for you. This is the moment to realize God's grace, that you're not broken. Do you remember what I said to you? That I say to all of my clients, because I mean it with my whole heart, you are not nearly as broken as you feel. You are not nearly as broken as you feel. I promise you. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're not failing. You adapted. Period. You adapted. And this is all you've known to do. And now God's bringing you a word to let you know it's okay. I see you. I understand you. I know you better than you know yourself. I know your thoughts before you think them. You're not nearly as broken as you feel, right, Abby? And now you get to rebuild. If you just noticed how torn down your walls are, maybe how you've never had walls, and maybe how you've never put boundaries in your life, maybe how you've never said, I matter, or said, excuse me, but I'm not participating in that thing because it's draining me and that's not the best for me. Now you get to rebuild your wall out in front of your house. Not the whole thing, not everything. You don't have to build everybody's wall. You take care of you. Nehemiah didn't rush people to build the entire city wall. He didn't say fix everything at once. He didn't say try harder. He didn't say be more disciplined. He didn't say do better. He said do something wiser. Just rebuild in front of your own house. It starts with the part of the life that you live on a daily basis. Some of you are already thinking, well, I don't have the energy for a big overhaul. And that's good. That's okay, because we're not doing everything. I just want you to find a couple of these boundaries, of these walls, and I'm going to show you and teach you what it is that you can do to start putting in place, like I've had to do the last few days as God shows me what to do with them. Remember, spiritual and relational boundaries and walls that are broken down. Remember this, that you let people in, that you feel guilty and shameful after certain relationships, that you leave the door wide open, that you find yourself compromising spiritually, that you love God with all of your heart, but then you compromise spiritually. Then you feel distant from God, and then you feel drawn away, and you're constantly battling this guilt and this shame. When spiritual boundaries are knocked down, that's when guilt walks in. That's where shame walks in. Don't let the enemy walk in with shame and guilt. Shut those doors. Put those boundaries up. Put those walls up. Don't let the enemy in. This is why that happens. Because you don't start because you didn't care about your faith. You open those doors because you just wanted to be loved and you just wanted to be accepted. And God knows that. You don't open yourself to relationships that are harmful because you don't love God or because you don't care about your faith. It's because you don't either realize the relationship is affecting you, or maybe you feel lonely, or maybe you just need connection. You keep those doors open, again, not because you don't love God, but because you're looking for human connection. You don't lower your standards. You're just trying to fill a gap. You're trying to fill a void, and you need to forgive yourself for that. But you need to see it so that you can close those doors, so that you can put a lock on it, so you can close the gate and not let the enemy in. This is what a spiritual boundary looks like. It's not about rejecting people. It's not about being judgmental or kind. It's about protecting what's sacred. A spiritual boundary wall means this. It means that you decide who has access to your spiritual life. This is what we're doing when we're being unequally yoked. We're hurting, we're longing for attention, we're longing for connection, for a human being, and we'll let anybody in. But we get to decide who we say no to. We get to decide who we block. And I'm not being mean, but for some of you, you've got to block some people who come around every now and again at 2 a.m. and they don't want nothing good from you. No one needs to have a conversation with you at 2 a.m. They're normally not looking to connect with you, but they are looking for something from you. Those are the people you block. Because no matter how good you're doing spiritually, if you let those people in, if you have those conversations, shame comes in, guilt comes in, you feel far from God, you feel like a loser, and then you ask yourselves, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? How come I can't just keep this thing going? How come I can't serve God better? Don't do that to yourself. Do not let the enemy do that to yourself. 1 Corinthians 15:33 says this, don't be fooled by those who say such things, for bad company corrupts good character. You get to protect your walk with God like a treasure. You get to do what I did in this book, and that where I said, God, I want to live in a bubble if I need to. I will block everybody that keeps coming in and sucking the life out of me or causing me to compromise my faith. I don't want to keep falling. I want what you have for me. And here's what you can do to rebuild that boundary. Here it is. You ready? Choose who has access to you. That could mean setting a clear boundary with people who don't share your values. That could be cutting somebody off, blocking somebody, not to be mean. You can have the conversation and say, hey, listen, I think we're going two different directions. You get to decide who has a voice in your spiritual journey. Do not connect yourself to people who are not going in the same direction. Be intentional about who you let to speak into your life. Set clear boundaries for people who do not share your values. Another way that you can choose this, protect your values. Protect your peace by protecting your boundaries. Choose relationships that only strengthen your faith and draw you closer to God. Limit or end contact with people who lead you to temptation. Ugh. Yeah, that one hurt. That one hurt. How about this? A spiritual boundary says this, my relationship with God is worth protecting. My faith matters. My peace matters. My spiritual well-being matters. I will live in a bubble if I need, but I do not want to lose what God is doing in me, what he is doing for me, what he is doing through me. I will protect my relationship with God, even if it means cutting off people who only know how to take from me. Amen? All right, let's keep going. Rhythm and walls. Here we go. Time and rhythm walls. We're going to talk about time because when we have no time walls, everything else falls apart. Remember, broken time wall looks like this, that everything falls together, it blurs together, there's no real start to the day, there's no real stop to the day. Man, this is so me. Guys, I don't know how to stop my day because I've been in ministry for 29 years and my phone rings in the middle of the night because somebody died or they lost their dog or they've had a fight or their kid is sick or they're at the hospital. I've never made my own schedule. So I've always woken up in the morning just going, well, I feel like I don't have enough time because whatever I want to do today is probably going to get interrupted. So I just won't do anything. I'll just wait for somebody to interrupt my day. Then I get to the end of my day and then I'm mad because it's like, oh, I waited the entire day to be needed by somebody because that's usually how my day goes. And now I've accomplished nothing and now I'm mad at myself. Does that sound familiar to anybody? You're always playing catch up. Nights become the only time where you finally get space. That's why I don't sleep, because my nighttime is the only time where people aren't asking something of me. And you know exactly what that feels like. You do at night what most people do in the day because you're never really allowed to just have your own peace. You say to yourself, I don't know where the day went, or I'll just finish one thing, and you never do. Maybe you say to yourself all the time, I'll rest later, and there is no later. When time has no edges, then life takes over, and there is no start and stop. It's just constant. This happens, and I want to remove the shame off of your life. The reason why we do this is because life demanded too much at one point. People needed you. Emergencies became normal. You learned how to squeeze yourself in at the end instead of at the beginning. And so time stayed open, not because you wanted chaos, but because you just needed to be flexible. And you were so tremendously flexible that there's no structure in your days or your life or your mind. Time stays open because you're always trying to survive. I get it. This is where God kicked my butt the other day. What a time wall actually is. It's not about just being strict. It's not about being rigid. It's not about becoming boring. It's about saying, my day will have a beginning, a middle, and an end, just like God did in creation. God put edges on his time. On the seventh day, he rested. And we don't know how to do that. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says this, for everything there is a season and a time for everything under the heaven. What rebuilding a time wall looks like, and you don't have to do them all, just choose one. It means that you are choosing an edge. You're not trying to revamp your whole schedule because you're not going to be able to, neither am I, but we can have a clear start to our day. And we can say, I'm going to get out of bed at this consistent time, or I'm going to start the day with this first step. I'm not going to reach for my phone immediately. I'm going to stop and I'm going to pray and I'm going to ask God to center me in this day. This day doesn't get to grab me. I get to start it. Does that help anybody? I have that one like really big on my computer. The day doesn't get to grab me and tell me what to do. I get to start my day and tell it where it's going. A clear stop. Maybe it's a clean start. Maybe it's a clear stop. Maybe for you, it's just making sure that your end of your day has a clear ending. You stop working at the same time. You turn off work at a certain hour. I had a friend of mine, Dave Giddings. He's a FCA chaplain at the Virginia Tech, and we preached at Virginia Tech when he was there. We actually ministered to the students there, and we went in and did assemblies and ministered to the students. And he is a chaplain for Virginia Tech. His name is Dave Giddings. He's an amazing man of God. And the whole time that we worked with him, he saw our schedule. He saw how we never let up. He saw that there was never an end to our day. And he continually said to us, guys, at 5 o'clock or 5:30 or 6 o'clock, whatever it is that you determine, you turn your phone off. And we're like, we can't do that. People need us. He goes, yeah. But when people can't get a hold of you after a certain hour, they're going to understand that they're going to have to contact you during the days that you're open. During the days that you're open, during the moments and the hours that you are open. Just like a business, they lock their door and you can't get in because it's done. You have to have an end to your day. And we're like, oh, okay, we'll pray about it. And we never did. We never did. When we were pastors, we still had people calling us at 12:30. We still showed up at people's houses at 2 o'clock in the morning to pray with them because they were fighting. And we thought that it was noble. And we thought that it was our duty. We thought that that's what we're supposed to do. And all that it led to was burning the candle on both ends, never really having structure, having our walls torn down, and then the things that were really important with our own family, sometimes we miss them. And it wasn't until we started learning the lessons that, wait a second, we are giving out to everyone else. But to our own children and to our own lives and to our own marriage and to our own bodies, we are not being kind to ourselves. Close the laptop, silence the notification, have a time that you're done so work ends so that you don't end. I used to say to my own pastor down in Melbourne, I used to say, hey, a dead pastor is not a good pastor. I appreciate you wanting to do everything for people. And this was me like saying to him what really I was needing somebody to say to me. That I remember saying to him as he was laying in a hospital bed at 26 years old, I said, Pastor Ken, I love you. I love you and I appreciate how hard you work. You're an amazing pastor, but guess what? A dead pastor is not a good pastor. And so I'm going to say to some daddy out there, some mama out there, you may You may feel like you've got to constantly go and do and be, but I'm going to tell you right now, a dead mama, a dead daddy, a dead boss is not a good one. Start being kind to yourself. Protect at least one block of focus time. Do one thing at a time. This might be 30 minutes. This might be one task. This might be no multitasking. This might be, nope, don't come with me at another job. Don't come with me. If somebody shows up at your desk, don't say, oh yeah, bring it. So no, I'm in the middle of working on something. It's going to have to wait. And I know it's going to be hard to do, but you got to stop when time ends. Do one thing at a time. Protect your focus, and then close your day. Close your day intentionally. Listen, guys, I am preaching to my own self right now. Tomorrow can wait because tonight matters. What in your life? I love that there's someone in our community that when I ministered to him through a discovery call, he was having issues within his marriage because when he would come home from work, he would still be on his phone. And so I suggested to him, do you have a drawer at the front of your house when you walk in that you can throw your phone into it? Absolutely. And that's what he does now. He comes home. He's a doctor. He comes home. He throws his phone into that drawer. And then the rest of the night, he's with his children and with his wife. Because other people can wait when we have our priorities in order. I will allow tomorrow to wait. I will close the day intentionally. Maybe you close the day with a short prayer. Maybe you close the day by turning the lights off or putting your phone away or writing a list for tomorrow, but putting it somewhere and saying, okay, this is for tomorrow. I'm going to write it down, and that way it's coming out of my head, but I'm not going to do it. You rest without explanation. Rest without explaining yourself. No apology, no justification, no earning it. Rest because you're human, not because it's a reward. It's a need. This is what a time wall looks like. Life does not get unlimited access to me. I get to determine where my energy goes, where my body goes, where my mind goes. I get to protect my time and my peace. I don't need more time. I need better edges to my days. Are you there right now? Okay, 2 more. How about your emotional and your relational wall? Let's talk about your emotions and your relationships, because some of you just don't feel tired. You feel completely drained by people. You don't even like them. You don't want to be around them at all. You isolate because you are just sick of people. You are done with people. And here's what an emotional and relational wall that's broken down looks like. People have too much access to you. You absorb everybody's stress. You're responsible for how everybody else feels. You over-explain your boundaries. You feel guilty saying no. You feel worn out by conversations. And you literally are just seriously annoyed at people all the time. Like, get out of my face. In Jesus' name. If you've ever thought, I feel heavy after talking to them, or I don't know why I'm so tired, maybe this wall's down. This is why it happens. Here's how you can remove the shame. It didn't happen because you're weak. It happened because you were learning just to keep peace and smooth things over and taking care of others. But what you really need to be doing is not shutting people out and becoming distant, but rather realizing that you can care without carrying someone's issues. That there is a place where you stop and they begin. That you don't have to be responsible for everything that they do and everything that they feel. Galatians 6:5 says that we are responsible to carry our own load. So here is what building or rebuilding an emotional and relational wall looks like. Here it is. You ready? Pause before you respond. Practice the pause. I pause before responding to emotional requests. That's what you can tell yourself. I will pause before responding to an emotional request. I don't have to answer right away. The world is not going to end if I don't fix it right away. I can take a breath. I do not have to answer everything immediately. That's hard for someone. You don't have to fix everything you feel. Oh God, this is hard. You don't have to fix everything you feel. You can let your emotions rise and fall. You don't have to chase them away. You don't have to explain them away. You don't have to panic over them. You can stop and recognize that feelings don't require emergency action. I can sit here. They will not kill me. I promise. Sit in it for a moment and let it come and let it go, because it will. How about this? Letting others manage their own emotions. Can I say that again? Somebody needs to let someone manage their own emotions. You are allowed to let others manage their own emotions. You can be kind without rescuing people. Their feelings belong to them. Somebody needs to write that on a Post-it note. Stick it all over your house or on your forehead. Let somebody else's feelings be their feelings. They belong to them. They can manage their own emotions. They're going to be okay. Some of you need to do that with your children. They don't know how to emotionally regulate because you always emotionally regulate for them. Oh, come on, mama. Somebody say amen. Choosing where you share deeply. Oh, geez. Access is earned, not automatic. Some of us, we are choosing to share deeply and be really, really, really vulnerable with people because we're forging connection. That's not connection. That is being foolish. That is not wisdom to share everything with everybody. In fact, my sister struggles with this. She loves to connect deeply with people. She loves people. She loves to connect deeply with people. And she will literally, first conversation, say the most personal things that make most people go, did you just tell me that? But to her, it's her way to connect with somebody. And she doesn't realize there's no wisdom in that. And it's the conversation that we have with her all over again. But that's okay, because we all have something. That's her something. She's an amazing human being. She would give the shirt off of her back. She works with autistic children. She loves people. But because she is such a connected human being and loves to love people, she sometimes crosses that boundary. And she gives access to people way too freely. An emotional wall looks like I can love people without losing myself. Somebody needs to hear that again. I can love people without losing myself. Okay, and the last one is this. Here's your body walls, your health walls. Some of you treat your body like a trash pit instead of the temple that the Holy Spirit lives in. And I'm going to say that to myself as well because I've already recognized that this week. When you are eating randomly or late, you're skipping meals, you're using caffeine and adrenaline to get through your day, you're sitting too long or never stopping or staying up too late or ignoring your hunger and exhaustion or feeling like your body's an afterthought. This is why you do it. Because you learn to override your body and you learn to push through, and rest felt optional and you didn't actually get a chance to take care of yourself. So here's what a body wall would look like. My body is not the way. It's not in the way. It is the way to get God's will done. So you need to take care of your body. You need to eat regularly. You need to be intentional with it. Because 1 Corinthians 6:19 says this, don't you realize that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who lives in you and was given to you by God? This is what rebuilding your body wall looks like, your health wall looks like. Ready? Eating regularly. This is so practical, guys. You sit down when you eat. You eat regular meals, whether you are hungry or not, because your body matters and it deserves energy, not energy drinks and leftovers. How about daily movement? That you move your body even daily, that you stop thinking that exercise is a punishment, and maybe it's walking, maybe it's stretching, maybe it's gentle movement, maybe it's something, but do something. How about responding to tiredness? When you notice that your body is tired, tired is information. Take the information and don't push past your limits. A body wall looks like my body and my health matters, and I'm going to start taking care of me. The very last one is work and purpose walls. You ready? This is it. Because some of you, work doesn't live in a lane. It lives basically everywhere. Everything is work to you. You multitask constantly. You have too many open projects. You struggle to finish projects. You feel pulled in so many directions. Your work spills over into your nights and into your rest. You're always behind. Your work follows you everywhere. And it doesn't end. You do this because you care deeply. You do this because you feel responsible. You do this because you don't want to disappoint people. You do this because everything feels important. You do this because everything feels urgent, and so nothing ever feels finished. You do it because you have a huge heart and because you don't want to disappoint anybody. So remove the shame. Don't beat yourself up. It's not that you're disorganized. It's that you just care a little bit too much. And so what a work and purpose wall looks like is that you don't have to lower your standards, but you do have to give purpose to your focus and your direction and in completing something, because purpose needs structure to thrive. Proverbs 16:3 says, commit your actions to the Lord and your plans will succeed. What rebuilding a wall for work and purpose looks like is that you have contained blocks. Work gets a container, not your whole day. That you have one priority at a time. You don't do everything, but you do one thing well. You prioritize. You be intentional about it. And you set amounts of time. You finish before starting something new. No more stacking half-done work. Completion brings peace. If you don't have peace, it's because you're not completing anything. Finish something before you start something new. Maybe for you, it's stopping when work time ends. The work block ends. And so even if it's not finished, it'll wait for another day. What this wall looks like is my purpose does not get to consume my peace. For your financial walls, don't avoid numbers. You're spending emotionally. You don't know where your money's going. You feel vague and anxious about your finances. You avoid what makes you anxious. So here's how we change that. We recognize, first of all, that we're avoiding money because it feels safer than facing it. No one taught you how to simplify the system. Nobody taught you how to avoid the stress by actually putting a plan in place that would make it easier for you. If money feels overwhelming, then here's what you do. Bring clarity, because clarity brings calm. Put something predictable, honest. Get together a plan. Get together with somebody who's better at money than you. Because you don't begin until you count the cost. That's what Luke 14 says. And this is how you rebuild financial walls. You look at money as a purpose. You choose where your money goes instead of letting your money tell you where to go. Awareness reduces anxiety. So instead of not checking your statement, recognize that you do it at certain times, not all the time, but at certain times. And maybe you do it with a partner who's better at it with you than you are. And you pause before you purchase. Money does not have to control you. You control it. And with your family, when roles are unclear and your house feels draining and your home takes more than it gives and you feel like it's heavy and your walls are broken down, here's the thing. This happens because you're capable, you're dependable, you care, and you're responsible, but don't let those things pile up. Home should restore you. Psalm 127:1 says, unless the Lord builds the house, the work of the builder is wasted. Clarify your roles. You're not responsible for everything. Don't be the default that you catch everything, that everything that's not getting done just automatically goes to you. Start speaking up. Start protecting your rest at home by saying, no, this is where I rest. This is not where I just continue to do. Some of you work from home, and that's why there's no line between work and enjoying life at home. And allow help. Some of you don't realize that you don't have to carry it alone. Ask for help. You don't have to do this by yourself. This is a place of peace and restoration. And so in closing, I want to say this again. You don't need to be a more perfect Christian. You don't need to do more. You don't need to prove more. You don't need to push harder. You need peace that stays. You need peace because walls exist, because you're putting structure in your life. God is rebuilding you, and it deserves protection. You don't rebuild everything tonight. You rebuild one wall. What wall in your life needs to be rebuilt? God is asking you to rebuild walls, not because he's harsh, not because he's mean, not because he's mad at you, but because he's kind and he loves you. This isn't about shutting people out. It's about closing the gates and never allowing people in who are going to steal your peace, who are going to lead you astray, who are going to suck the life out of you. And I know that sometimes we don't have the ability to always keep that closed, but if there's an area of your life where you keep getting shamed or feeling guilty or broken down, notice it. Notice it. Do you have a door on the hinge? Do you have a lock on that door? Are your walls secure? And so at the end, I just want to pray with you right now that, listen, some of you love God, but your life has been completely wide open. You've been trying harder, but you've not been protected. You've been worshiping, but you're still living exposed, and you feel worn out and done, and you're like, this isn't working. I came to the Lord to have peace, and I still don't have peace. It might be because you're allowing things in your life, or you don't have structure in your life, or you don't have focus in your life, that you've got worship, but you don't have walls. You got to have both. This isn't a moment of guilt, it's a moment of grace. I want you to say, God, I'm ready to rebuild. I want to respond right where you are. I want you to respond. You can lift your hand, you could whisper it to God, but I want you to acknowledge it. Jesus doesn't just forgive you, he restores you. He wants to strengthen you. He wants to build you up, and he wants you to protect what he's building in you. If you're listening tonight and you have an area of your life that is not surrendered to Jesus, you have walls that are broken down, you have absolutely no structure, you say yes to everyone, you say no to nothing, you let people in, you allow people to come in and to steal away your peace. You're working so diligently hard to build yourself up, and you're tying yourself to people who don't respect you as much as God respects you and you want to respect you. And so this is a hard thing, but this is what you got to do. You got to pray and say, God, show me, help me, direct me. Tomorrow I'm going to send you out these things of where to start, how to build walls. I'm going to send them out to you. If you want to sign up for my newsletter, I'll send it to you. But listen, I want you to know this, that you are not nearly as broken as you feel, that God does work. You're just not building up the walls that work, that keep people out, that keep things out, that keep old mindsets away. God works. I always say this word works, but you got to work it. The Christian life and walking after Jesus, it is everything that you need it to be, but you need worship and you need walls. You need to be committed to going after God with all of your heart and recognize where you don't have locks on your doors or doors at all. Notice how, like me, maybe you came to know the Lord and you didn't put any structure in place. You still kept the old friends. You still kept going to the same bars. You kept buying the same foods. You kept watching the same shows. You kept listening to the same music. You kept allowing your mind to go to the same places. You kept the same people having access to your heart. And meanwhile, you're trying to grow and you're like, what's wrong? You got worship, but you don't have walls. I want you to pray with me. I want you to pray with me right now. You ready? Jesus, I give you our life, our lives, all of us. We have walls that are broken down. We have a life that we desire to live for you. And many of us, God, you've forgiven us of our sin. You've come into our life. You've come in. You've washed me. You've made me new. But now teach us how to follow you. Teach us how to have not only worship, but walls. Teach us what are broken down. Help us to see it. Don't let us get overwhelmed by it. Help us to build out the wall that's right in front of our homes. What is most affecting us? What is most depleting us? What is most beating us up? What is mostly telling us on a daily basis how we don't have control, how there's still chaos? Lord, many are struggling with boundaries. Many are struggling to put up walls. Many are struggling to keep things out. Many are struggling to make decisions. Many are struggling, Lord, in ways that, God, it has nothing to do with their spiritual life. It has everything to do with their practical life. And so, Lord, in the name of Jesus, I pray that you would show us, that you would lead us, that you would guide us practically, Lord. What can we put in place? Help us to rebuild those things that have been exposed. Help us to be filled with your Spirit. Father, for every person who is rebuilding, for every person who has lost and has stopped rebuilding because they're depleted, because they're zombies, because they literally don't know which way to turn, I pray that you would help them to recognize that you give them permission to build out their lives, that you give them permission to not only seek you, but to say yes to the right things, to say no to the wrong things. That you give us the ability to choose our friends and to choose our access and to choose what we let in. And Lord, in the name of Jesus, you're going to lead us and guide us. You want to give us worship, but you want us to also have walls. Teach us how to do exactly that. Show us, Lord, what needs to go, what needs to be cut off, what needs to be pushed away, what needs to be brought closer. Where in our life are we wide open? Where do we need to practice restraint, God? Where do we need to put the brakes on? Where do we need to close the blinds and not let people in? Lord, I pray that you would show us, that you would teach us, so that we could start having victory that stays, so that we could start having peace that remains, that we would start having grace and stop shaming ourselves, that we would have strength one day at a time, one step at a time, and that it would not be depleted as soon as we gain it. We love you, Lord, and we thank you for your truth. We thank you for your word. We thank you for your direction. This word tonight, while long, is a message that we have to have if we're going to flourish. To have worship, but no structure and no boundaries, will only lead to an overwhelmed, confused, exhausting faith. And that's not what you want for us, Lord. We thank you and we praise you for it. In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name, amen.